Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Heads Together. I'm Bonnie Low-Kramen, and I'm here with Jennifer Wilner. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Bon. Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday.
I hope you all enjoyed our newest edition, Heads Together, our countdown timer, which thanks, Jen. Thanks for finding that.
My pleasure.
So welcome to Wednesday. Welcome to all of our viewers coming to us from all over the world. Really happy you're here. We have a great show scheduled today with one of my favorite people. Jen, I know you've been hearing the name Brenda Rogers for years, right?
A long time, yes.
So, yeah, let me get right to it so that we have maximum time with Brenda and that our viewers can have a chance to ask her questions. So here is a little bit about Brenda, and there's so much to say, and I'm not going to take a crazy amount of time, but I want to give you some of her background because she's had a really remarkable career journey from being an executive assistant to chief of staff. Hello, Victoria. Welcome from New Jersey. Happy you're here. Brenda Rogers is our guest today. She's a native of Texas. She lives in a suburb of Dallas, and you'll hear that Texas twang in her voice. She is a certified administrative professional. She is committed to ongoing training, and full disclosure, we've known each other a long time. We figured out since 2011, so it's been 10 years. She is not only committed to learning for herself, but she's also very committed to teaching others. And to that end, she's been part of a study group, a CAP study group, where she has helped others pass their exams. She cares deeply about the community of assistants. She's a member of IAAP, a longtime member, and I know she'll talk about that, as am I. I'm a member of IAAP. Right now, Brenda is the chief of staff and executive assistant to the CEO at Gordon Ramsay North America. Before Gordon Ramsay, she was the field administrative manager for McDonald's in Dallas. And prior to that, her title was Vice President of Administration and Executive Assistant to the CEO at Del Frisco's for Norman Brinker. No, Norman Abdullah. I'm sorry. You'll correct me, Brenda. I'm so sorry about that. Norman, I don't know where I got that other name from, probably what I was reading. What you will learn about Brenda is that she is a foodie. She's so knowledgeable about food and hospitality, and thus it's a great career for her. And then we share another passion, which is movies. So without further ado, let us welcome Brenda Rogers.
Yay.
Hi, Brenda.
Good morning. Hi, Jen. How y'all doing?
It's so good to see you.
So happy you're
welcome
here.
to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for saying yes. We keep in touch from all over these periods of time. And it's just been a joy to observe your journey. So I want to welcome our viewers from all over the world. Welcome to Terry and Joy and Denise and Lynn and Jackie and Susan. We have people who are very interested in knowing about you, Bree, and about this journey to chief of staff that's catching a lot of people's ears lately. And I love when people like you can really pull the curtain back. But first, let me ask you some quick questions so that our viewers can get to know you a little better, for those in the audience who don't know Brenda very well. Are you ready for those? Ready for a few questions? All right, let's see. Elton John or Sting?
Sting.
Favorite TV show as a child?
The Lone Ranger. I love Westerns.
Favorite dessert?
Bread pudding.
Do you make one? Do you make it too? Bread pudding?
I do.
Yeah, because I know you not only love going out to eat, but you love to cook, right?
Yes.
Yeah. If you could have only one book on a desert island, what would it be?
Oh, it'd be the Bible.
What's your favorite app on your phone?
Flight Aware. You can watch your flight, take its trick.
Yep.
And I normally watch my managers as they are going wherever.
And that seems to be a favorite among B2Aers, because
Oh.
it's real-time FAA info, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, cool. Favorite movie?
Wuthering Heights.
Favorite beverage?
Bourbon, straight, please.
Oh, you'd love it here in Jacksonville. They're crazy about their bourbon down here. It's great. They're like bourbon clubs.
Oh, funny.
Last thing you binge watched?
Oh, Yellowstone.
Oh, of course, the Western, right? And then tell us one thing that's not on your LinkedIn profile, one thing that would surprise people.
Actually, it's a job that is not on my LinkedIn profile. It is not anywhere. I hated the job. I left the job, and it is nowhere on my resume, my LinkedIn, nothing.
What were you like? Can you tell us what you did?
I was an executive assistant, but it was a terrible company.
Interesting. And so you don't even want to give it any air, you don't want to give it any press at all.
I don't even speak to it. So.
We don't even say the name.
No.
We don't even say that. Okay. I mean, that's how strongly we feel about our job history. Yeah, I get that. You have some, Terry is also binging on Yellowstone, by the way.
Oh, yes, it's so good.
Kevin Costner is getting better with age, isn't he?
He is. And if I can say this, I have a hashtag.
You can say anything here.
I have a hashtag for him. It's Hot Daddy Rancher. I mean, he is so fine.
Okay, then. Kevin Costner's right up there. I mean, he's been gorgeous his whole life.
He has.
It's not fair. It isn't fair. So, Brenda, thank you for indulging us on that. You were one of my first students at Be the Ultimate Assistant.
Yes.
And I mean, how crazy were we? Did we do it over the phone or did we do it over Skype?
We did it over the phone, and people who have been to your classes now are going to be so jealous of me because we did it over Skype. It was over a weekend, and I had Bonnie all to myself. And, it was it was great. It was great. And we did it, I think, over 2 days. So it was on a Saturday and Sunday, I think 4 hours each.
Oh my God.
And so it was fantastic.
I'm so happy you have that memory of it, that it was fantastic. And certainly we've come a long way. And since then, you've been with us in person.
I have.
You were with us in Atlanta for sure.
Yes.
I remember that. Yeah. And many, many other times we've been together at the ELS forums. But so I've been following your career at least for 10 years.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through, and I know you have some pictures to share that Jen can put up for us whenever you'd like.
Okay.
Talk to us about your journey, Bree, from executive assistant to chief of staff, and what has happened to you, because you are physically different now. I mean, you have come a long way in these 10 years, I must say. So please take it away. Talk to us.
Okay. So first off, I've been an administrative professional for over 30 years, which is really hard to say. And my goal was always to be an executive assistant to a CEO. So in 2011, when I met you, Bonnie, that's when that happened. And I sought out training because I wanted to, be the best that I could be. um, even when, and I think I worked with Norman for 4 years. Jen, I have the picture of Norman and I. This one was taken in 2013, I believe.
Yeah.
But anyway, Norman Abdallah, I worked with him for 4 years or more, and he was the first CEO to hire me. And to let everybody know, I still work with Norman. When I left Macaroni Grill, when the company was sold, I went to the unnamed company, and then I ended up going to Brinker. And when in both those jobs, I did not go work for a CEO. So, it was like I was here, then I went here. My pay was lower. My position was a different position. It was lower, if you want to call it that. And when I went to Brinker, it went up a little bit because then I supported the SVP of people. And while I was at Brinker, Norman called me back. And then I ended up working for him again and went back to supporting a CEO. So, it was my road, getting to where I am has been, up, down, because even when, I got to a Taco Mac and with Del Frisco's restaurant group, after that, then I went back, down to a field administrative manager. And that was after being VP of administration at Del Frisco's restaurant group. So, and now I'm back to, or I am a chief of staff now. And so it's never going to be straight. It's never a bad thing if you have to take less pay, or if you have to take a different position than where you were. Take that information, take that skill and that experience and take it with you. Just, everywhere you go, take that, because believe you me, you will use it where you end up. And if you want to be a chief of staff, you're going to need to, rely on all of that experience that you gained. So don't get frustrated about it. It happens. And, just keep moving in the direction you want to go. And that's the other thing I want to say too. Stay focused on the direction you want to go. People talk about, intention. Stay focused on where you want to go. It may look up, down, but still stay focused in the direction you want, because if you don't, you'll never make it. You'll go this way, that way. And so you don't want to do that. So just stay focused where you want to be.
Yeah, Bree, you said you had a goal to be EA to the CEO, but did you have a goal to be chief of staff?
I did. When I reached the CEO goal, I thought, okay, what can I do now? Because I felt like, well, I don't have a goal now. I felt like, I had reached the top of the mountain. Where do I go now? And it took a few years. And when I was at Del Frisco's, that is where I talked to my manager and I told him, hey, I want to be chief of staff. And I think I have a picture of that too. That's when I told him that. And, it's important to talk to your managers about your goals and what it is that you want to do, because they can help you. If they are interested in your success, they will help you do that. And so Norman was interested in my success. He helped me with my training. He even sent me on training right before I got my promotion to vice president. And I was totally shocked because these are usually people in much higher roles than what I had. And so it's very important that you let your manager know what it is you want to do, and again, stay focused.
And did you have to fight for it? Did you have to somehow provide documentation to justify? Did you, because we have a question from Susan about, there's some resistance. Can you, Bree, I don't know if you can see on the screen, Susan's asking, how can we bring the chief of staff job specs forward to large corporation HR to get them to reclassify some of our EA positions? That, the companies, not all companies are wrapping their heads around this chief of staff role. So that's why I'm asking if you had to fight for it.
I did not have to fight for it. My manager saw the work that I did and how I partnered with him, strategically and what I brought to the table. So I did not have to. I think, personally speaking, it will take a while for companies to get their head around it, mainly because I don't think they understand it. And the way that I made my manager understand it, it was an article I ended up reading. And that's what started me wanting to do it. And so I sent it to him and I was like, hey, this is what I want my next position to be. And so, he read it and thought it was fine. And I kind of thought he forgot about it until I got that promotion. It's going to take some convincing to get some other managers and companies to get their head around this new position. I realize that, but we can't give it up. I think as more and more executive assistants become those roles, I think it'll start to make sense to people, because it's more than an EA role.
Oh, for sure.
It's more than that. So
how many people are reporting to you in this current position that you're in?
Currently 0. We are a small company, so but that'll change next year. But and it'll only be one person. I might get 2, but and that's going to take some convincing.
Well, I'm curious, in your career, how many is the most people who've ever reported to you?
3.
Susan is thanking you for that answer. Bree Marion was asking about the kind of training that you've done. Why don't we jump to that? That, because you've had this laundry list, and I suspect some of it's on your LinkedIn. Jen is going to put in your LinkedIn profile in the chat so people can connect with you. Can you kind of run down, though, the different trainings you've had in order to prepare you for chief of staff?
I won't say this training helped me get to chief of staff. It was just a cumulative training. So, any kind of seminar that I felt was, I'm trying to think of names that I felt important with IAAP, I would go. I've been to 2 or 3 of yours. I went to, Richard
Arnott.
I went to Richard Arnott's, and if I can say this, that course is the one. That is the advanced certificate for for executive assistants.
Yep.
That course is so good. It lasts a week or 5 days.
Yep.
And I don't know if Richard is still doing it or someone else is. Okay. He is a very good teacher. If you want to know about business, if you're just trying to get your head around it, that is the course to take. It teaches, talks about strategy, stockholders. Is it stockholders? And I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful course.
Right.
And I still look back at my notes from time to time.
Mhm.
That one I think is really good if you're specifically looking at chief of staff. The last one that I went to before leaving Del Frisco's, it was with KPMG. I don't think anyone can sign up for it. I think they go to the companies and ask. It was for women. Ask, who do you want to send to this course? That one was really very cool. Those two are the ones that I would say are the best for someone who wants to do chief of staff, or even if you want to, you still want to remain an executive assistant. They're very substantive courses, and just kind of help you to, have better conversations with your manager and understand, if you're on the leadership team, understand the conversations at the table and the terminology that's used.
Yeah.
I think those are very good.
Well, that's a perfect segue into this next question about London. That in the middle of a pandemic, there you go. And it's so fun watching you on Facebook as you went to London twice in 2021 on business. So can you talk about those trips? And I know you've got some photographs about what was your mission on these trips to London, and why twice? And of course you had to eat amazing food. Talk about that.
Well, first off, let me just say this. Anybody who knows me and knew what I was like during the pandemic is probably still can't believe that I left to go anywhere this year. So it was just kind of funny. I went from, cowering in my home to London. So, so that part was funny. But the first time that I went with my manager. We was going to London to learn about Gordon Ramsay's restaurants. He has a few restaurants in Las Vegas that some people may know, but our company, Gordon Ramsay North America, we have the responsibility to bring Gordon's restaurants over to the U.S., more of them to the U.S. And so the majority of his restaurants are in London. So we went over to see them and to get familiar with them, to meet the people, to learn about the secret sauce, what makes them so successful. And so that was the whole point of me going. I almost didn't get to go because it was like a day or two before they changed the rules. We would have to go and stay for 10 days, quarantine for 10 days. Oh. And of course, you know how I was about my pup. And so I didn't want to be away from her that long. And when I thought about the opportunity, I was like, well, maybe I need to be a bad dog mom and go anyway. And so just when I had decided, okay, I'll go, the next day, they changed the rules to allow the U.S. to come over.
It was meant to be, right?
It was meant to be. Yeah. And so I got the opportunity to go. And what I was going to say, the cool part about going with my manager is I could go into the kitchen, because he always wants to see the kitchen when he tours restaurants. So I got to go into the kitchen, I got to stand and talk to the chefs. Of course, we ate and the food was fantastic. We got to meet, all the GMs at the different restaurants. And it was just fun talking about food and service and, the strategies of the restaurants. It was a blast for me. And I can't. I think over the years, out of all the years that I've been in the restaurant industry, I've just, built up more and more interest about, what's going on out there. So it was very fun to me to talk about it and not, just eat the food, which that was great too.
And so the
And
first trip was how many days, and the second trip was how many?
the first trip was 9 days. That was so fun. That was our last night there. But with the first trip was for 9 days, and the second trip was 5 days.
Oh, it was shorter.
It was shorter. The reason I went the second time was my chief people officer had not been there yet. And so my manager, the CEO, suggested that I go with her. And I was really surprised by that, because she's a C-level individual. So I was very surprised that he wanted me to go. And the purpose of me going was because I went the first time. I was familiar with, the restaurants she was going to see, the people she was going to meet. And so that was going to help her on that part. And of course, it was going to help her logistically with, getting all around town and everything. So that was the second reason
Right.
I got to go.
Well, when you were there on either trip,
Mhm.
can you speak about it from the chief of staff point of view? Like, was there a meeting? I mean, obviously you were in on all the meetings and you had your seat at the table. Is there something that comes to mind? I didn't ask you to prepare something, but is there anything that happened on either of those trips that, you really showed your value at that during that conversation? Or, like there was there was a reason you were sitting at that table, right?
Well, I feel like I showed my value in a couple of ways. Of course, the obvious way was, on my EA side was the logistics, how I handled that and, got people moving. On the chief of staff side, I would think the questions that was asked, because I was at all the meetings, and I would, if there was a question I wanted to ask, it was just based on what we heard, I could ask. You wouldn't get the look like, what are you doing?
Right.
But I got to ask questions. I got to interject with them and speak with the knowledge and to gather knowledge. When I got back, I had to give a report to the LT about what I saw. And Norman he did that too, but then he was like, okay, Brenda, you want to talk about your perspective? And I was like, but I did it. And so yeah, I think there was value. He wants me to go again. And so I think there is value. If I did not provide that, he would not at all want me to go again.
Interesting. Gotcha.
Mhm.
So, Brenda, you shared earlier that you've been in the administrative world for 30 years. That's a lot of time.
It is.
So you've seen a lot in your career.
Mhm.
As a woman of color who has risen up through the ranks, what are you thinking as we look ahead to 2022? Are you optimistic about what you're seeing? Are you a little worried about what you're seeing? How can EAs, in this 30 years and what's immediately ahead of us, what are you thinking about what we're moving into?
Well, I am optimistic about the future for women of color in the administrative field. I think of us as, a strong people. We speak up, we go after what we want. And I think, and it's not to say that no one else does, but I'm speaking on my experience. I think as long as we continue to do that, and we continue to get noticed, because I think from my experience, I was looked over. And so, when I started to get my certifications and, started learning things and getting training, before, I became a EA to a CEO, that I think is what started to get me noticed. And I think if we continue to do that, women of color, we're really we're gonna blow up. So in a good way, and and continue to fill these roles and to be noticed. I think that's the one big thing. I think sometimes we're just not noticed.
Yeah. And you shared a story earlier before we went on the air about the asking for training. Can
Oh
you
yeah.
talk about the whole training piece? Because this didn't just happen, this confidence that you have now. You've had a journey with the ability to speak up too, right?
Yeah. No, it didn't. When I was younger, and I've always loved training, from my 20s to now, always wanted to be trained in the positions that I was in. And I never asked for training. I always paid for them myself. I took my vacations to do the training. First off, they were that important to me to do. Secondly, I was scared to death. And I didn't want to ask my manager. I did not want to feel obligated to that company, because I felt like if they paid for my training, I'd have to stay forever. And so when I was promoted, or not promoted, when I got the job to support the CEO of Macaroni Grill, I asked him, and I sent him an email, and I explained, what it was I was looking for. I had found Bonnie by then, and I sent him, what she was about, the link to the training, and that, I wanted to do this, and this. And I sent it, and I tell you, 5 minutes it took him to respond to my email. And he said yes. And that was the only thing he wrote in that message. And so I was shocked that he just said yes, because I knew he was going to say no. But I had to ask, and I've asked since. So always ask. You have to ask for what you want. If you don't, you never will get it, and you could possibly end up being stuck.
Yeah. There's so many lessons there, Bree. I think, we know that this profession is dominated by females, 95 to 98% female. And if I've heard that story once, I've heard it 1,000 times, where assistants get it in their heads that they have to pay for it themselves. And you used to take vacation days, right?
I did.
You took vacation days, and it was so filled with fear to be able to even think about having the company pay for training, not having to take it as vacation days. To everyone listening, leaders do that. Leaders do
They
that.
do.
They get their companies to pay for training, and they don't have to take it as vacation days. And it's not being greedy or taking advantage. And trust me, leaders don't think to themselves, oh, well, if the company pays for this training, then I have to stay forever.
No, they don't. And what we need to realize is, even as administrative professionals, from an administrative assistant to a chief of staff, we add to the bottom line. Whatever it is that we learn, whether we learn it in a seminar or just from your experience. Our work adds to the bottom line. We are contributors to that company. So don't think of it as when you're asking for training, oh my God, it costs too much, or they're just not going to send. They're not going to send me, or even be afraid to hear that. Ask anyway. And you may not can go this year. Maybe you can go next year. Maybe you can find a seminar that's less. But always ask, because you are contributing to that company.
Well, and to that point, even on a very basic level, if the work of an assistant helps save a manager an hour of time a week, that hour of time has a dollar value. And that if you happen to have any idea what they earn, it's simple math, really. It's, that amount of money of savings far outweighs the cost of training.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of a no-brainer. And I think the good news, if there's any good news, silver lining from the pandemic, and this big war for talent and the big great resignation that we're hearing about, it's that leaders in HR seem to be more inclined to hear requests like that, to get training. So, it's Jen, I think Bree had a couple of more photos, and Megan had a question, or Megan had a comment, and she said that having an executive who supports your growth is such a gift, but they can't know how to support you if you don't share your vision.
That's true. That is very true.
Can you speak more about that, Bree? About the courage to speak up?
That was, how I have my position now. That was how I had the position at Del Frisco's, is because I shared what it was that I wanted to do. And he was behind me on that. You have to let them know, if you don't, how do they know? If you don't, you can't be mad about you not getting where it is that you want to be. You want to have him support you, or her to support you. So, even in this picture, this is my favorite picture.
Which I took.
Yes, this is my favorite picture because, my manager, Norman, he came to speak, to talk. It was about our partnership, I believe. And so I was telling, how I got hired when I first started working for him. And, it meant a lot to me for him to join us, because he's very busy. The minute this session was over, he was on a plane to New York. So I really appreciated the time that he took to talk about how we work together. And that's another thing, you have to build a partnership with your manager. I think that's important. Hopefully, there aren't millions out there who cannot do that. But I hope that you do. You just have to do it.
Well, yeah. Thanks, Jen, for putting that up. And I recall that session very vividly, Bree. And as effusively as you were talking about the partnership, he was talking that way too. That he couldn't do what he did without you.
Right.
And that's why, how many years have you been together now? On and off?
10
years, from the time I've known you. Susan made a comment that the answer is always no if you don't ask.
That's true. It's always no.
And that's easier said than done, though. And as you found out, because you were Hoofy is wanting to connect with you on LinkedIn, and you're totally fine with that, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Your story is filled with messages of that, nobody gets there alone. You didn't get to
No.
this place alone. You've had many trainings. You've
Mhm.
had mentors.
I
You've
have.
had supporters and people who've encouraged you to ask, that it didn't happen in a vacuum.
You
And
know, I have to say this. My mentor, she's still my mentor, even though she's retired, Josie Betts. And she worked with me back at Pizza Hut. And before I got the job at Macaroni Grill working with Norman, when that position came up, I didn't want to apply. For some reason, I was scared, even though that was what my career goal was. And so I remember talking to her about it, what do you think I should do? And she was like, seriously? And, I credit her with me getting the job because the next day, I submitted my resume and application
right.
and however long after I got the job. And so I do understand about being afraid to ask. I get that, but just like the other person was just saying, the answer is always going to be no if you don't. You just have to take that chance. And quite honestly, don't be afraid of no. Don't be afraid of the N word. Just go. It's just a word. And if you get opposition, then try to work into that. Well, can I do it next year? Can I do it in 6 months? How can I make this happen?
Right.
Make it a conversation. Don't just tuck your tail and leave. Ask.
That's great advice. And that's actually one of the reasons why we do this show every week, is so that people listening live can hear you say that, Brenda Rogers, and then it lives on the replay on YouTube so that these messages are heard loud and clear, far and wide, because they matter, especially for women. And it truly is easier said than done. So curious to know if you have some favorite books, favorite resources that you've told us you pull from Richard Arnott's ACEA materials, but what are your go-to, what's on your shelf?
I have several. First off, and this is not just because it's you, but I do have your book, Be the Ultimate Assistant. You had a couple of editions.
I have.
I do have that one. I still have Melba Duncan's The New Executive Assistant. I know it's a little old, but the premise is there, the base is there. And so you can still kind of build off of that.
Sure.
And so I have that one. And then Joan Burge's Underneath It All. That's another old one. But I still look back to those when I have questions. Some of my favorite leaders, or two of my favorite, one I just told you about, Josie. The other one, I like Oprah Winfrey, and I've followed her forever since she's come on the scene. And I just think her advice is good. I think some of her advice is good. And she's somebody that I look up to and watch. So I think those are the people, the things that I like that help me. I wanted to tell you one of the movies that I like to watch that features an executive assistant. And I've told you about this before. It's Executive Suite. And I think it was made in like 54. And it has Barbara Stanwyck and William Holden. And I won't tell you what the story is, but the woman who's playing the executive assistant, this woman she really knows how to lead these leaders
Mhm.
in the situation that they're in. And I love her role. I love it. If you ever see it on TV, it most likely will be on either TCM
Yeah.
or movies. Watch it. It's so good.
Oh, I want to. I try to watch every movie in that genre. We just have a few minutes left, Bree. Um, I'm so curious, and I have a feeling people on the call are. When did you become a foodie? It's so interesting that your whole career has been with one food company after another. And
Yeah.
you obviously, I mean, when you were in London and you were going out for these meals, that was not work for you, right? Like
Oh, heaven.
it was a labor of love. It was kind of like when I would go to the theater with Olympia Dukakis. It's like, this is not work.
Right,
This
right.
is just a labor of love. So did that happen from the time you were a little girl? Did you love to bake? Did you love to cook? Like, how did it happen?
I've just always loved food. You can't get this body, without eating. And so I just always have loved food from, a child up. And, my mother taught me how to cook. I learned, what my grandmother did. So I
Yeah.
just love all things food. And when I was laid off from Blockbuster, however long ago, and I had to look for a job, that was one of the things that I thought about. It was like, okay, what do you want to do? Where do you want to do it? And I remember writing down food, and I was like, that's silly. And then I started to think more about it. And it was like, well, restaurants, and
Yeah.
we have a few corporate offices here. And so that's how I got into it. My first restaurant company job was after Blockbuster was Pizza Hut. And I've been in the industry since. So I love it. And it's a fun industry. The people are
Mhm.
fun. So it's a good time.
Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Well, um, thank you so much for being here, Brenda. Do you have any last thoughts? Any quote that you pull from that you love? Any last words for our audience?
The only thing I would say that I've been saying all day is get training. You have to get training. It keeps us relevant. It keeps us on top of, the latest business trends and
Mhm.
technology. You have to train. You have to do it, and you have to ask. I will even give you permission to pay for your own one time, but you have to ask to get that training so that you can continue to build your skills and experience.
There you go. And Megan says, asking gets easier each time you practice it. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's no, but you learn that life goes on and you adjust and move on. Just because it's no today, as you said,
Right.
doesn't mean it's going to be no next week or next month.
Mhm.
And the trend is that recruiters are building in annual training budgets for executive assistants. And Bree, you're so right that this role contributes to the bottom line. So we hope you will join us next Wednesday, December 15th, when we will have a guest who will be joining us from England. Her name is Susie Flynn. She is a coach, a life coach, and a mindset coach. And we'll be talking about confidence, which is a really hot button topic. I want to thank you, Jen, from helping us from behind the scenes. And Brenda Rogers, you are such a dear friend, and I so appreciate you coming on to share your vast expertise and wisdom with us. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
you're welcome. Thank you for asking.
You bet. Have a great holiday.